Well, just this morning, the president floated a reduced 80% tariff on China. A bit of an olive branch, perhaps, as U.S. tariffs create massive pressure on China's exports. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, the S&P 500 has nearly erased its losses since the Liberation Day tariffs announcement, and the NASDAQ is up almost 20% from its bear market low. So, David Bahnsen, I come to you first on this. Let's talk about the China weekend, and let's talk about the reduction to 80% going into that weekend. What do you make of it?
That 80% is going to end up being 50, and so I figured out this art of the deal complexity. It's at 145, it goes to 80, it ends at 50, and then they talk. And, you can't do anything at 80. You can't do anything at 145, so they're the same. 50, there's some trade that starts to happen, albeit expensively, but it thaws things a little while they enter into some good faith discussions.
Okay, and we had heard that 50 number. I'd heard a 60 number floating around, Dagen. I mean, what do you make, though, of moving to 80? Is it a sign? Is it really the kind of olive branch sign that some people are calling it? What do you project?
I think about Mother's Day, you better come bearing gifts, even if it's your mother-in-law and you despise her. So that's what China is to
I love
us.
my mother-in-law, I just want to say.
Okay. But you better come bearing gifts. David is making a face at me.
I'm just thinking about Mother's Day.
Yes. So 80%, you have to that they have to come with something to de-escalate the situation. Do I have any idea where we as a nation go from here with China? No. Whatever China says will be a lie. The deal that was struck by Bob Lighthizer and Larry Kudlow during President Trump's first term, they never adhered to one single piece of it. What we should be gunning for with China, and I don't literally mean gunning, but is an opening of that market to U.S. companies. And it is completely and utterly closed down. When you go there, you cannot use U.S. payment systems, you can't use U.S. apps, you are in another world, you might as well be on another planet with kind of questionable technology and aliens that spy on you. I'm not equating the Chinese people to aliens. I'm just saying it's another world. So I don't know where we go from here. I think that investors are thinking about every other country that they're negotiating trade deals with, and the baseline is a 10% tariff that Howard Lutnick was crowing about it on Larry Kudlow's show yesterday, about the External Revenue Service. If 15% tariff across the board, Larry, do you know how much money we would be bringing in? So 10% is your baseline here, and expect to have a broad tariff on every nation that we cut a deal with. That would be my prediction.
It looks that way. Jackie, we've talked a lot about China's export situation, and we know exports to the U.S. have come way down. There was a piece in the Journal today about how they say they've sort of moved those exports to other countries in the region. Now, I suspect you're as skeptical about that as I am. So why don't you go ahead with your skepticism?
Okay, so this is a moment where you read my mind and you came to me on this one. I was hoping that you would.
Because it was not coordinated. That was just reading mine.
Thinking about, how China puts the messaging out there. They lie about everything. When they don't want you to know something, they don't give you the numbers at all, and that even exacerbates the problem. Their exports to the U.S. are going to be down. And listen, that's a double-edged sword because, we trade with them and we need each other. So that is just sort of put out there. But I'm thinking back yesterday to this trade deal that Trump and Lutnick and the whole team announced with the U.K., and they were talking about buying power. Part of this was non-tariff barriers. They wanted to shift some of the buying power. They got $5 billion in agricultural exports as part of this deal that was increased. And I said, if you do that and you do it with every country, it might have a very significant impact. And then you think about what the UK was saying. They were saying, this isn't going to hurt us by, killing jobs or slowing our economy in any way. It's our buying power that we're shifting from taking other things from other countries, and we're going to take them from you. And that's what I think the president was trying to say just earlier this week when he said, we're the world's greatest luxury store, and there's going to be a price of entry if you want to shop here, but everyone's going to want to shop here. And I think that's what he's trying to do. And once you start doing that, you're going to start taking little bits and pieces away from other countries, including China. And so they're using the excuse and saying, oh, but we're getting more business from other countries. They have to say something, obviously. But I'm not necessarily sure that that is how this will play out. The 80%, I will just say, doesn't really mean much to me the same way that first tariff list didn't mean much to me. The 145% didn't either. They're having conversations and they're talking, and I think they're going to get to a better place. That's not 10%, because that was on the low side for the UK, but they're going to get to a place, I think, eventually through this art of the deal, David,
Cheryl,
that will be better.
Let me bring you in on this, because we got the 80% number this morning, and my first thought is, ooh, I want to see how markets react to this. Markets haven't reacted all that positively to the number. I know you're watching markets and investor sentiment closely. Seem to be in a wait-and-see mode right now for what happens over the weekend. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the markets need clarity. They needed clarity from the beginning of all of this. But I thought, a big piece of this, I think, is kind of who are the voices that are contributing to these numbers, whether it's 80%, which President Trump did come out with. Earlier, the New York Post was reporting it was going to be 50% going into negotiations. I thought that was a head-scratcher initially, because I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to a negotiation with the Chinese, why would I all of a sudden say, yeah, I'm going to bring it down to 50%? Next week. I'm going to put that number out there right now. Why would you do that and put yourself in a position of weakness going into what is going to be some tough discussions this weekend with Besant and the teams from China? At the same time, the whispering, and this is the whisper number, this 50% that the Post reported about this morning, think about who that would benefit. That would benefit your Walmart. That would benefit your Target. That would benefit your Home Depot. All those CEOs, guys, were at the White House. All of those teams are very, very invested in getting these tariffs really out the door if they could, but back down to nothing. 10%, certainly that reciprocal number across the board around the world, I think would be a lot more digestible. But especially with Target, a huge amount of their product mix, guys, is coming from China. So they've got a lot at stake right now. They're the ones that are, I think, doing the chattering, if you will.
The 50% possibly, the reason that number is out there is, well, Paul Tudor Jones talked about in an interview he did recently, the famous investor. He said that we're going to go down to new lows even if Trump, the president, goes down to 50%, meaning the tariffs. I am sure he will dial it back to 50%. I think that's already in the stock market. And noting that 1/5, at least 1/5 of our imports from China are already at 20% because of the exemption on electronics, on the iPhones, on all of that. So we've gone from 145 to only the 20%. So maybe that's an operating number, because we gave away the store with that one to benefit Apple. And also one thing in terms of inflation to watch for, because China has cut off so many of our agricultural exports, just stopped importing hogs, or pork, soybeans, and the like. You will probably see a decline in prices at the grocery store here in the United States because of that in the short run. You could see food inflation ease mightily in the coming months.
David, you wanted to get in, and then...
I think that the people I'd be watching most are not the guys who got the 20% tariffs with their lobbyists and lawyers and the big multi-trillion-dollar companies. It's the small businesses that are getting killed. Getting killed. 77% of job openings in America, the highest it's ever been, are with companies that have 250 or less employees. You're not getting job growth if these small businesses get hit by this. That's where the vulnerability is. I will just tell you, I don't fully agree on the 50 being a benefit. 50, 80, and 150 are all the same number. There's no trade happening at those levels. You have to get it below 50 towards trade. Why it's relevant is it signifies where the administration's going, which is why the weekend he did the 20% carve-out thing for Apple and NVIDIA. I knew he was going to go cut a deal because he knew that it was not true that this was only going to hurt China. It was going to kill us.
I think there's a lot of signal sending happening here, to your point, and I do think it's a little bearing gifts, Jackie. But yes. Again, a lot of this, how do markets digest all of this?
We've been running up in the last couple of weeks in anticipation of some of these trade deals. And so now you're seeing them come to fruition. We only have one, but maybe there will be more. I think we need to have a deal with China, and I think we need our big, beautiful bill for the economy to, hold up and stabilize and be able to move forward. But I really don't think it's going to have an impact on this market, to Dagen's point. I think it's really largely all built in already. So the administration better show up with something to keep things going, but I don't necessarily think that's going to be a market driver.
Can I say just real quickly, the one trade deal you're talking about that with UK announced yesterday, we had a trade surplus with them.
Right.
Trump administration has said over and over again that all these countries we have a trade deficit with are ripping us off. So presumably the only country we got to deal with so far, we're ripping them off. Of course, I don't believe that, but that's what they believe. My point is, there's not a real framework in that deal for the other countries, not yet.
Not even but what about the 10% as sort of the baseline? I think
the main
signals
issue was
something.
opening new markets. Dagen referred to this with China, that we want them to be more of a customer. By the way, I do think they kept one part of that deal, Dagen, was soybean purchase and liquefied natural gas purchase until COVID. Then that all stopped. But again, if that's what we want to do is open new markets, I think that's going to be the real success that President Trump
For
gets out of this.
killing 1.1 million Americans and millions more around the globe, they could have at least kept buying our soybeans and LNG.
Well, someone has to be using it, and they shut down their country for 3 years.
No, well, they were functioning just fine.
Well, the UK, in the meantime, is going to be eating more of our beef.
That's
and
right.
Buying more of our.
They were
ethanol.
still
we're going to be
eating.
buying more of their Rolls-Royce.
They were still
And we're going to
eating.
be buying more of their Rolls-Royce engines for Boeing jet
Can I
planes.
just, quick for one thing? I also agree with you, David. I think the 50% is still high. I think he was bearing gifts to start the conversation and negotiation. I think what we see from the UK yesterday is that he's willing to talk.
Yeah.
He's listening to the CEOs around him. He's listening to his advisors. He's willing to talk to these countries. And I think you end up with a tariff, whatever the baseline will be, that's less than 50%.
But I agree with David wholeheartedly that the people who are suffering the most are the small business owners, and I hit that a couple of days ago, and they deserve a voice and the number to the bat phone in the White House, because they don't have access and they don't have enough people listening to
And
them
they don't have
down
access
in
to
DC.
capital markets to get through it. So they lose on all fronts here. I agree 100%.
Well, we shall see what may happen for them in Switzerland.